Okay, I'm gonna get started right at 6 o'clock. Alex is gone today, so I just thought it'd be easier for me to chair. So call the meeting order at 6 o'clock. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I've always had this like fear of forgetting the words when everybody's listening, so thank you for all playing in. You should have had the agenda in front of you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Motion. Okay, Gage, is there a second? Wally second. Oh, Wally second. Okay. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, the same sign. The minutes should have been emailed to you from August 5th. Is there a motion to approve? With Wally, is there a second? Second from John, I think. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the same as well. Do we have Wichita Fire? Just, sorry, I'll get you right when you walk in.
Oh, I'm in here, I can,
Okay, sounds good. Well, if you would give an update on statistics and anything else you want to talk about.
Okay. Hi there, my name is Pete Ritter. I'm Battalion 4 on B shift. I cover mainly the west side of town. I believe the information was sent over our update. It was all submitted already. So I'll kind of touch base on that. For those that didn't receive this, I believe it's on the web page. I'm not sure on that. But it's just an update on every division of within the department on the what's coming up, what's going on. These stats are from the August, because obviously September kind of what the X was behind a little bit. For DAP4, it's kind of a busy month for us on DAP4. Had quite a few little fires, nothing major. There was one big fire that's 2 alarm, but due to the heat, is mainly why we have the additional alarm frequented. For instance, 700 block at West 59th Street South, we had a manufactured home, cause was undetermined. It's excessive storage. The exterior porch was on fire. Crew got there, kept it from not getting too far of the structure itself. Additional, another one was 700 block, or excuse me, 700 block South Custer. Is accidental by clause, duplex. Is starting an exterior down in the house a little bit. So a lot of the smaller fires, one I was talking about, this 2 alarm, was on the this here, sorry about that. Was the 500 block at South Florence. It was a accidental by cause 2 alarm. It's on a motel, 2-story motel. Somebody started a grill, went inside to get something, came back out. It spread from the grill, got to the structure, started burning up the exterior. Extremely hot that day. Crews recognized the heat and requested a second longer response just for the manpower and for the additional lines it took to suppress the fire. Another fire that's worth mentioning, 400 block at South Robin. The department was delayed a little bit on that fire. The initial response was 400 South Rock, which is completely on the other side of town. Then it was quickly corrected. Correct crews were dispatched to 400 South Robin. While responding, they saw a pretty good header from a distance, not to the radio. That was accidental. It spread basically from one house, and then there's a little bit of damage to as an exposure to the house. So crews were busy in the month of August in that 4th district. Vacant building, vacant houses are still a problem for us. We're still having a lot of vagrants, squatters. They have slowed down a little bit this month of September. Hopefully they continue to slow down, but that's just been a priority to try to keep those fires under control. You know, try to slow them down as much as possible. We do have a recruit class starting here next week. I believe in a week they're going to go through their EMT certification, emergency medical technician certification, and then they'll transition to the fire academy. So and that's just new. They're not new. This is basically as people leave, we got to restock the team. A significant thing I want to talk about for those that you haven't hit here or where we did have a line of duty death in August. Mutual aid response down by Hayesville, extremely hot day, 104 at the time of fire, full gear. The individual was witnessed, kind of lock up, originally thought he was having a seizure, fell over, crew was right there on, they just got doing, film training with removing your person out of the equipment, start CPR on him. It's not that crew just practiced it, trained on it. He was out of his gear quick, they were on his chest, they the pressures right away. They transported him, worked on for a little bit at the hospital, and then before he was pronounced deceased. Basically, that hit the department pretty hard. When it's one of our own, I don't have to go into too much more detail. I'm sure you guys watched the news, you guys heard about it. Today, September 9th, an application was submitted to NIOSH for a full investigation for the review of the line of duty death. We want to find out exactly what had happened, how can we prevent this, and what we need to change in the department, so we don't have to go through this again. So, other than that, that's something we kind of close on that note. I can go into the drought, we all know we're dry. I mean, be careful, stereo burning, everything else. Is there anybody with any questions or anything I'll leave them? Questions?
The letters that are the investigation.
Basically, it's an application for NIOSH, NIOSH, and they basically come in and investigate the cause of death. The pros, what happened, what's gonna happen. And it's so the fire chief submitted that today, at September 9th, 2024. So, and that will take quite a while. It's not really a quick turnaround. That's perfect.
Thank you, Talia Chief. The one thing I'll add, the council will be voting on Tuesday. Or on tomorrow morning. There was a fire death in December of last year, that the county and city are entering a joint agreement to investigate. When the RFP went out and Jensen Hughes, who did the police, study a few years back, was the one selected to participate at that. So the city will be entering an agreement with the county. The county's the parent organization that's going to be managing the funds for it. And so the city will spend, I believe it's 90,000 as a contribution to study the fire death in December of last year as well. So that'll be on our agenda tomorrow.
I don't know where to bring that up.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you for the
Okay.
report.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll take Wichita police now. I don't know if west or south, we're gonna do it together.
Technically, we're the same bureau now, but he's gonna cover a little bit less.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm Paul John. I went to Southside on Saturday. This day, so I'm no longer the West CP officer, but I'm here just to be staff for this one out west. Listen for. So, for District 4 homicide rates, robbery, aggravated assault, part 1 violent crime, it's up 40%. And part 1 property crime rates down 90%. So that's my comparison. We did have homicide, and there's a deluxe scan. I think there's good about that. Or everything to do with the body of the crime. We've done an investigation. We did everybody involved. Talk to an applicant. Yeah, we don't mention it all. That's the case. Other than that, and it's perfectly.
I just have one quick question. So I know you had said the statistics for month by month. Is there a way that we can just get a year to date as well? Because month by month, I know can fluctuate a lot.
Right. So we do have a year versus last year comparison. I do have it right here. It's for the part 1 violent crime year comparison, maybe 3%. And then the part 1 property crime is up 7%. So year-to-year comparison, that's what we have that. So a month, so we do have, we have it all on here. That's 9 days, I have 9 days comparison, month comparison, 5 year comparison, 5 year comparison. It's part 1 violent crime is negative 5%, and then part 1 property crime is up 4%.
Okay, so, thank you. Appreciate it.
I'm off the cap from the South Bureau. Really well known, Richard Wall, actually has not much to do with that, community, with that. It's a lot of it. Mainly on through the office, and that section, it's actually pretty much. The South Bureau. Mainly the topic I want to speak on. I spoke last month about the police department, we had the class on it. So that's a big thing. I think they have school started back up. I was working. But ongoing, but if you look at schools like Truesdale, Graywood, and Kelly Elementary that have a main earlier, we're connected to 33 deposits. Housing issues with drop off of different kinds of parents. We've tried a lot of different things to try to address it. I'm not sure I have an answer for that situation. That's something I'll be able to do.
We're easy, right? Appreciate you.
Thank you guys.
Library time.
I'm Steve Anderson, I'm a conservation manager. Last month, we had 4,496 people visit the library, checking out 6,567 books for items. Beginning today, September 9th, which is public library initiated auto renewals. So basically, your materials are coming due. They have been automatic renewal. Won't have to call stuff to have to renew again. For the next, you have 2 renewals on it, so no automatic on that. You have a big event coming up in November. It's Do It Yourself DIY Day. The event brings together makers, innovators, and creatives from around the community to highlight their unique projects and creations. And this allows an opportunity for the library to showcase its makerspace, technology, and maker equipment. And there will be live music, food trucks, and so much more fun. There will be 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. down at Pennsylvania Library. Beginning September 16th, customers can borrow burning book packs from the library. The library will have 4 book backpacks for the library of things donated by the Kansas Audubon Society. These backpacks are perfect for the whole family with 1 adult pair of binoculars, 2 pairs of children's size binoculars, and pamphlets with them to for easy transport. So, burning, yes. I thought you said burning book.
Oh,
No, it comes with that, patches and all.
Sorry. The library's podcast, Read Repeat, Return Repeats, has a new episode now streaming. We can interview author Alex White, a science fiction and horror writer best known for his Thousand series and their tie-in novels for the aliens and Star Trek. In this latest episode, we explore Read ICT Category 6, a book that in space, and Alex talks about his newest novel, August Kitco in the Necklace. You can learn more at wichitalibrary.org/podcast. Alfred will be renovated January through May of 2025. Hopefully this evening will be done in May at some point, which is actually the first of May. Any questions? I don't know if those had questions from last week or last month. If you have anything else on the remodeling, answered or be answered.
No, I don't think so. We'll have to figure out, I don't know if we've decided a place to meet next year. It's January through May, right?
January through May, but the meeting room is going to be the last thing they do.
Okay.
And it's just going to be carpet and paint. So
We may decide a month after that.
yeah, that's the only month that may or may not. It's after the first day. Hopefully for the middle of May, start on it. It could be done, ready to go by June.
Okay.
So we shouldn't have to change this meeting time.
Thank you for that. Thank you for your report. I have a quick question, could we also, so we don't have to do this now, for the year to date too, the 4,000 seems great, I don't know if that compares to what it was last year or what you reflected in the course of the year.
I think last year was down about 200 folks. We had been running about 300-400 for the year up until May when the Peterson crashed. And so we lost a month, what the half, 2 months worth of, certificates. I can bring that for you.
I appreciate that. I also, went to the Westlake, branch, as they're renovating right now. It's gonna look pretty incredible. So everybody, after it's open, make sure to go look at it. It's a pretty great facility. I'm going there as a kid. That was in my branch, between this branch and that branch, my branches. I was at the downtown branch today, so I did a lot of libraries. But,
Even though it's, being used, Westlake is my first branch that started working at high school. And, it's nice to see that they finally have a side of it back there.
Any direction for, questions for the director?
Yes.
How about my folks in Canada?
So, it seems, quite, this week, we have 2 scheduled for today. One, we did show, and we can't promise. Yeah. One is scheduled. I wasn't actually supposed to have 2 days. Few more places, few more libraries are doing it now. Covered it with.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you for being here. Report. Appreciate it. We have a special guest to get today as well. Gary Jansen is the Director of Public Works for the city. He's going to give an update on drought response and probably answer any other questions you have about Public Works as well. So Gary, oh, and before he mentions this, I'll forget afterward, in the back, I'll make sure they're by the door. There are drought signs. I have one in my yard. I would encourage you to have one in your yard as well. I actually don't have that one anymore. But the yard signs, to let people know, drought awareness. So Gary?
Thank you, Councilmember. So I've got a presentation that I'm going to be making to the Rotary next Monday. I've been on the speaking tour about the drought. It seems like they kind of evolved. Senator Marshall was in town. We had a water roundtable. We talked about some of this. So I'll try to get, there's quite a bit of information here. I'll try to get to your things. I think other things on your agenda, but happy to stop and answer any questions. Just for what it's worth, I just came from Florida the last 4 days. My brother lives in Jacksonville. I go down there to play golf, to go to the beach, and it rained the entire time I was there. Go figure. Jump back here, there's nothing, right? So I think everybody knows that we are faced with some ongoing drought, especially related to our surface water at Cheney. So I want to talk to you kind of about what it is that we do, where we get our water, how we're being impacted, and what our plan is. We do have a plan in place. Heard from the public a lot, especially since we went to mandatory water restrictions in early August, and I appreciate the input. We've got a plan. We talk about that this is an imperfect plan for a less than ideal situation, but I really think we're in a good place because of this plan as a result of the drought. We're real quick focused on what we currently do. The top picture is our current water treatment plant built in 1939. Assume most people are aware of that bottom right picture with our brand new water treatment plant. Construction is nearly complete. Construction basically is complete. We're heading towards bringing that plant online April of 2025. A lot of things to happen between now and then. I'll talk more about that in a moment, because that plant provides us some additional flexibility related to the drought. City of Wichita is the regional water provider to 1 in 6 Kansas. 17% of Kansas population of 500,000 people receive water from Wichita. And we have 11 wholesale customers, 8 cities, 3 rural water districts. I'll tell you a real quick side note, we've got some folks question whether we should be doing that. Should we be providing water to other communities? And I could spend a long time talking about it, but the long and short of it is a lot of those communities don't have another water source, right? Water's not just plentiful and available out there, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in. Water rights are appropriated by, Kansas Department of Agriculture Division of Water Resources. Very precious resource, so the region has grown, our community has grown, our neighbors have been able to flourish because of our ability to be a regional water provider. The state of Kansas recognizes that it is a good thing. The city of Derby is getting ready to build a water treatment plant. They do have some water rights. But what they're gonna do is use that for the high demand time during the summer, which hey, it'll help. As we keep going forward, City of Valley Center is getting ready to build a water plant with their water rights, and been completely off of our water scale. So that helps, right? Some of those things looking forward as far as the future for drought relief, but always keeping an eye on that, working with those customers they're required to provide conservation plans. And they have to meet all of the requirements of this code, this codified drought response plan, everything we're doing with water restrictions, they have to match too, and they have to do a good job. Does this work?
Sorry.
Our raw water sources, Cheney Lake, I'm gonna talk more about in a minute. Cheney Lake was built in the early 1860s for its sole reason of providing water to Wichita. It's obviously become used for a lot of recreational purposes, which is good, but they're being impacted now by the drought. Equispeds Wellfield, northwest of the community. A lot of people don't realize we have two primary water sources, being the natural aquifer there. The Equispeds is currently 94% full for a couple of reasons. We are fortunate with the geology of the area of this Equispeds compared to a lot of the other parts of the High Plains Aquifer, which includes Ogallala. If you've heard about the Ogallala in western Kansas, which has been struggling for many years, it's been over appropriated and droughts impacting it. We're in a great place. We're naturally recharging. But we've also done a lot for our storage and recovery project, which I'll talk more about shortly. Very innovative project. There's a lot of these been done around the country, but what we do is capture high water in the Little Ark River. We treat it to drinking water standards. We inject it back into the ground, we keep the aquifer healthy, we keep it high. We keep water in there for the times when we need it. And while we're doing that, we build up credits above and beyond our annual appropriations that we can use at some point in time during extreme drought. We're not there yet. We are in water restrictions. Those are to be used at the time when we're really getting to a bad place. We're building up those credits. We will continue to do that. But by doing that in the meantime, we're also keeping aquifer more full. And I'll talk about why that helps so much more when our new treatment plant comes online in a minute. We have a local well field that's near our existing water treatment plant. We're doing some work on to upgrade the wells. That's the alluvial aquifer, the river itself, if you will. So we've got water rights there that we'll be taking back to the new treatment plant. So Cheney, lowest it's been since 2013. This is a climate issue and a climate issue only. We are since 2022 over 24 inches of rain below normal in the Cheney watershed. The Cheney watershed is 600,000 acres and it refuses to rain in that watershed. The USGS during our roundtable discussion with Senator Marshall said the inflow into the reservoir is the lowest it's been in 57 years. That's not long after it was built. That tells you the situation that we're in. But we do have a good plan. We can't make it rain. We can't control the climate, but what we can do is control the best that we can our usage, especially during high temperature seasonal months when outdoor irrigation is more prevalent. Those are the first things we can look at. That's what our drought response plan looks at. If drought continues, we're in stage 2 now. We'll this in a minute. Stage 3 is projected in 12 to 18 months. Stage 3, we hope to never get to, eliminates all outdoor water. You don't get water once a week. It's part of this plan, this drought response plan is developed and built to get us through a Dust Bowl type drought. But there are times when you get into some pretty tough situations to be able to get there. One thing I want to mention real quick while we're looking at this. We've heard from a lot of people of, why don't you go in and dredge out the lake while it's low and make a bigger hole in the ground? That's not that easy. So one of the great reasons is it's extremely expensive. So I'll give you a quick example to grant some numbers. If you look at the exposed shoreline, if you will, kind of call that the part of the bottom of the lake that's exposed. It's a 9,600 acre lake. It's a little bit larger than El Dorado. 2,300 acres exposed. If you went in and dredged that out 3 feet deep, the estimated cost $100 million just to do that, and it buys us 1.5 months of storage. So you just don't get much for what it costs. This is a huge lake, but this is not normal weather patterns, right? There are a lot of times that we're spilling water out of this lake when we're not in a drought situation. Because even as we're using water, it's replenishing itself. We're in a tough spot, climate-wise, or a tough spot with the drought. Dredging is not, go to the next slide there, Brooke, if you don't mind. On the left, I wanted to add two. This is from the Kansas Water Office in 2017. They do what's called bathymetric studies, which basically measures the sedimentation of the state's reservoirs. And that's a little bit hard to see. Cheney is fourth from the left. Between 5 and 10% sedimentation over time. We have been very thoughtful and proactive over the years of protecting the watershed and being a part of programs to protect against sedimentation. Doing a lot of things upstream within the Neosca River Basin to help limit the sedimentation. So we're in a great place as far as the volume, capacity, sedimentation. There's not much to do anyway. The one on the far right, Tuttle Creek, if you're familiar with that, Manhattan, is over 40% sedimentation in that Tuttle Creek Lake. They actually have federal funding getting ready to start for what's called water injection dredging. To start dredging out that lake. So I have to tell you this really, really fast what that means because it was a little bit surprising to me. They blast high pressure water into the bottom, stir the mud up, and move it downstream. And it sounds like, well, gosh, all you're doing is moving mud from one place to the other because that's what they're doing. They've got this figured out, and because I sit on the Kansas Water Authority and I've heard them talk about it, and it is truly a science on the method, how they do that, the way they move it to balance that downstream of the reservoir. Because otherwise, the use would be $100 billion to go in and excavate out Tuttle Creek. It's just not going to happen. So using some pretty innovative things to do that. Bottom line is they're in good shape. I want to mention the picture on the right. So that spillway, if you will, call it a morning glory, it's because it's shaped of kind of the bell of the morning glory flower. The water used to be up just about where it would go into that. So it's a little deceiving here to tell the 7 feet. The main thing, the reason I want to show this picture is that is the main dam on the south face of Cheney, and it needs some work. We've known, we're probably within a couple of years, we need to make some repairs. So just kind of a quick side note to everything. We are very close to wrapping up our Connect Corps of Engineers. We're working to get a project out the door to try to get it, make it repaired before the water gets backed up. We would like to have been there sooner, but you never know. We always thought we were going to get rain and it was going to come back up. So we're going to pull the trigger. We're going to try to get in there. The last thing we want to do is start the work, have it rain and have to lower the lake, which we won't do. We're going to try to get this all done at the same time. Okay, you go on. This shows our monthly actual pool condition at Cheney. The solid blue line is really the one you want to pay attention to. The big dip was 2013. You see where it came out of there. The 2013 drought, if any of you were around here, was effectively taken care of by 2 major rain events. We got huge rain, which thank goodness for that. We can pray for that again here at some point. Unfortunately, if that doesn't happen, our projections, if we were to get back to normal precipitation, keep in mind we have lived for a long time, it'll take over 3 years to get back to normal pool. That's the situation we're in. Not even close to being out of the woods here. We've started to slow the decline of the lake with the water restrictions in place, but it's still dropping. That break in 100-degree days helps. Evaporation a lot more. I think everybody recognizes that. Getting cooler temperatures will help. But you can see where we're headed. It's not good. So we got to do everything we can to slow down the water that's taking out of Cheney. Okay, you go to the next one. The current level is 59%. The lake itself. Our triggers for each stage is based on 12-month average, which is 67%. So we've got a little room to go. This is a drought response plan. City Council approved this in 2013 as part of the city codes, 4 progressive stages. Again, for response to Dust Bowl style drought. There are some exemptions through the first three stages. The first stage being voluntary conservation. I'll talk about more in a minute. Stages 2 and 3. There are some exemptions. We've had some discussions, not terribly popular, and I understand. But we got a lot of car washes in this community, right? I have no idea why it's only car wash. Those car washes use recycled filtration systems. That's not even necessarily required. From a business perspective, they could not stay in business if they did not do that. They couldn't afford the water. So they don't use near the water that people think. We're trying not to run people out of business, right? They employ people. It's a different opinion and values. Golf courses is always a tough one. With our internal conservation plan, which our golf courses have done a lot to conserve water and change the way that they do things, and they will continue to do that. You can go and figure it. So this shows all 4 stages. It's a lot of information, but I want to mention stage 1 and 2 in particular. Stage 1 was activated in January of 2023 based on the level of Cheney at that time. That was a formal process by which the city manager declares that. It went out to the media and went out on water bills, asking for voluntary conservation. We have the city of Wichita, a large organization, use a lot of water. We have an internal conservation plan. I'll show you where that can be found in a minute. We've done a lot of things, simple things like we've shut fountains off for the last 2 years. Not a lot of water, but we want to lead the way. We want to be good stewards. We've got a lot of people that want the fountains back on, but we're not going to turn them on while we're in this situation. Stryker Soccer Complex has 11 fields that were all with the natural grass turf. We were able to capitalize on some outside funding for that. Typically a lot of water use. We've done a lot of things on our golf courses, our landscaping standards on our projects, anything that we do have changed to more xeriscape landscaping, things that have taken less water. We do want to provide a good example for the community and everything that's going on. So we got off to a really good start during that design. Unfortunately, the climate issues continued, the lack of rain continued. And we activated stage 2 on August 5th, 2024, which means we go to mandatory water restrictions to 1 day a week. This talks about stage 3, which gets rid of all outdoor watering. Stage 4 is a really tough place for us to be in because it does start to impact business. Hospitals, dialysis centers, going to keep using water. Everybody else in the community has to show that they will reduce their water usage by at least 15%. And any type of discretionary water use is out the door. We don't want to get to any of that. This has already been, and I'll talk about it more in a minute. We have no desire to go out and put more mandates on anybody, more regulations, to have to police this, and I shouldn't use that term, but have to oversee this and try to enforce rules. It's tough. And so this has been more about education for us, not about enforcement. It's about education because we've got to all make sure in the future we don't have a short memory like I think we did in 2013. So if you go on to the next slide. So what's happening now, you've probably seen this once weekly water restrictions were implemented August 5th. Watering Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday only. No watering Friday through Sunday. It goes northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast. I'll tell you the very first Tuesday in the northeast part of the community, this is a lot, has to do again with geology and where our community is made up. There's a lot more people with sprinkler systems as well on the east side of town. And our northeast pressure zone had some issues that very first day because so many people were going to take advantage of their 1 day, but we figured that out. It wasn't a big deal. We got through it. We have seen really good results, more than I would have expected from this. And we've been pretty steady. If you go to that next restriction, or next slide, it's a little bit hard to see. Back on the 4 stages, it talked about penalties. So first violation is a warning. Second is $50. Third and subsequent is $100. We have not gotten to any fines. We've issued some warnings. As you can see, weekly usage has been consistent. The last 4 weeks, we've averaged 30% plus reduction from the base week. So that green that you see up top, there's a purple line there that's August 5th. You can see the usage prior to that. You can see what happens with those peaks right there in the middle of every single week, and it comes back down for the week. And it's been really consistent in that 30% range. The box in the middle is kind of hard to see, it's got a number of violations, that's been less and less each week. We told the community leading up to August 5th that they could report if they saw what they thought was a violation of use online, there's a number that they can call. We did not go out and say, hey, right on your neighbor, but if you saw something and felt like reporting it, fine. We have staff who are out, our construction staff, MABCD, housing inspectors, who said, don't go looking for it. Don't go looking for it, but if you're out and see, hang it on the door, let them know. It took a little bit for people to understand, right? I've got to tell you this because we hear this all the time. We got in direct contact with Quick Trip right away. Everybody talks about Quick Trip running their sprinklers all the time. They've done really well. We've got proof from them that showed they've got an irrigation company. They set their controllers for once a week. We actually have had a few Quick Trips reported as a second or third time used. We were able to show by the meter users that they had not done that. So who knows, if people saw it the wrong day, if they're just frustrated with a Quick Trip, I don't know. But we do have a way to follow up before we would ever issue a fine. So overall, I think it's going pretty well. So as you know, anybody with wells are exempt from this. I've got a well, I water once a day. We encourage everybody to try to do the same thing to conserve. From an enforcement standpoint, it's not helping our resources. We can get a lot of calls. Therefore, that's the reason why you're supposed to have a well sign. That's actually required in the code. We've had some people push back saying that that was an overreach. I'm not putting in a well sign. It would help us out if you don't mind. Because if we drive by, just because we can see a housing in the yard, it doesn't mean everybody's got their well and stuff, right? So it's taking some time to learn, but you can see the water use has been pretty consistent. We have seen, I mean, that's taking a lot less water from Cheney. We're also taking water from the Equus beds right now. We probably take about 55% of our water from Cheney, 45% from the well field, which is going to change once the new plant's online. That bottom box is kind of hard to see, but Cheney is still dropping. We have slowed the decline from where it was at. It was dropping rapidly before we started this. And from August 5th to September 9th, it's dropped, what was I say, about a foot?
Yeah, 14 to 13.
Yeah, so it's about a foot that it's still dropped, but that's a lot slower than it was. That's what we can hope for at this time. They've got some rates, at different times it helps us a little bit, but it's been so long since there's been rain in that basin. You gotta fill up the ponds, you gotta fill up the creeks, you gotta fill up all the low spots, and once it's gonna rain right on the reservoir, it just takes a while to get there. Go on this side. We've had a lot of outreach, resources and outreach. SaveWichitaWater.com is the best place to go. It's got a drought update. This shows the level of Cheney. It's got our internal conservation plan. It's got some great information from K-State and Sedgwick County Extension Centers about the best way to take care of your yard. So here's what we've got to combat going forward. When we worked with the local weather stations, meteorologists, to help us keep the message out there that just because it rains here, it doesn't mean we're in a good place because it hasn't rained in Cheney. So they started focusing on Cheney. They started showing pictures. They interviewed a citizen one day and she said, now that I know this, I'll stop watering twice a day. Well, nobody should be watering twice a day. I don't think people do that, but I think it's probably more than you would believe. We have to overcome that. Another quick side note to this, the reason why we've got to keep moving forward and look to the future. I ran into a colleague of mine just the other day, an engineer. It doesn't mean anything, but I thought, got to pay more attention to things. He's a busy guy. He does things in the development world now. He had no idea we were under any restrictions. He said he was driving around the other day, saw some signs in his neighborhood, and he didn't even know what it meant. So, in his defense, not everybody's on social media. People don't watch the news. We're trying to find every way we can to get the word out to people, but it takes some time, right? So, I still keep them not paying attention, but that's a really good. Okay, go on to the next slide. I'll hit on this real quick. There's a lot of things that we're doing, have been doing, will continue doing for protecting our public water supply. So we have a tiered rate structure in place. That was already in place. Everybody's got an average water consumption in tier 1. As you get to the seasonal use, if you get a certain percentage above that, you pay a higher rate. This is an industry recognized standard across the country. It's used for incentivizing conservation. It works pretty well. Our 20% of our water use is during the summer months for outdoor water use, it's discretionary use. We've dealt a lot with HOAs. We spent a lot of time with HOAs. Some of the first people that came to us and said, what am I supposed to do? My HOA is going to fine me. We spent a lot of time communicating with HOAs and asked them to get on board. HOAs have to comply with local law. They are not outside of that. They're not above that. And so we asked them to start backing off and say, hey, we're not going to do this. We're not going to fine you. I've heard some are doing it. Not everybody is. The HOAs themselves with commentary from wells, which is fun. I mentioned Aquifer Storage and Recovery Project keeps aquifer healthy. There is a fairly sizable chloride plume from oil and gas work within the Equispeds that's migrating its way towards a lot of our water rights. It's slow, but it's going to get there. By keeping the aquifer more full, we can hold that off. We're working on a separate project with multiple entities to try to help mitigate that more in the future. Industrial reuse is going to be something we're going to talk a lot more about going forward. City of El Paso, Texas, partly by necessity and partly because they saw the value, all of their water sources from reuse. So if you're not familiar with reuse, it's taking our effluent from our wastewater treatment plants, reusing it again, right? For treating it for water purposes. Historically, there's been what everybody calls this X factor, right? Trying to sell the community on, but you're going to take what comes out of the sewer treatment plant, run it back through a water treatment plant, and have it sent out to everybody. The reality is we have 30 million gallons a day that leave our main sewer treatment plant south in the Wichita, go to the Ark River, and there are other communities downstream that pick up that same water that have water rights. They treat it and send it to their customers. I think this is going to have to become a part of who we are. We're going to start taking a look at all of our resources, all of our facilities, and see what we can do. It's 15 miles from our south treatment plant to our new water treatment plant. We could somehow magically get a pipeline up there and send that 30 million gallons a day back through there. You'll imagine what that would do in a situation like this. Spirit, a lot of people look at the amount of water Spirit uses and says, why aren't they doing something? They are. Spirit paid for the infrastructure to go from our sewer treatment plant for some of their processed industrial use water. They have a contract to use 385 million gallons per year, and they're using a lot of that. So they are doing a lot of conservation. We want to do more of that. As we look at new industries coming to Wichita, I always try to encourage our economic development folks to plug them right next to one of our wastewater treatment plants, right? Because you can get them water and that reuse helps us conserve. So we're going to really keep an eye on that. We've done a lot with capital planning because of the efforts and the help from the city council will get through the CIP. And then our Wichita Water Works treatment plant, new treatment plant, it's really a deal breaker. So keep going. I'm sorry it's taking longer than I thought. I'll wrap up soon. Aquifer Storage and Recovery Project, I mentioned, I wanted to show you this real quick. Bottom left, as you can see the river coming through, that's the intake structure. It goes to a sedimentation basin, goes to a pump station. And if you go to the next slide, this phase was built in 2012. So it's a surface water treatment plant. We've got staff that are up there all the time. This is the regulatory requirement. It seemed a little bit counterintuitive. Just take water out of the river, you treat it to drinking water standards, and you put it back in the ground. But it's necessary for what happens with it after that. This is what's developed its credits. This is what's kept the aquifer full. It's been a great project for us every time. And it's going to help with long-term drought resilience. I mentioned our water treatment plant. Construction is complete. I've got an item that's going to the city council a week from tomorrow, hopefully. It's going to really keep us moving forward on some adjustments for the contract, the commissioning and startup. A lot of functional testing is done. We're ready for the performance testing. We're ready to run water treatment plant, we're ready to bring it online. We plan to have this plant online no later than April 1st of next year. We're gonna run both of our treatment plants probably for the duration of 2025, make sure everything's going good here. And then our goal would be to shut down the current plant at the end of that. So here's our challenge with our current water treatment plant. And don't mean to ask me to explain this to you, but I couldn't if I tried, because I'm not a chemical guy. We were challenged to treat only a certain amount of groundwater. It's always got to be a blend of Chi and the Equispeds, and it's less water from the aquifer. 45% is about the best we could do. If we had to, we could run 100% groundwater through this plant. So that is a big, big deal. We don't have enough water rights or water available to meet some days during the year, so we wouldn't necessarily do that. But once this plant is up and running, we can shift that blend and really take some of the stress off of Cheney at that point and start taking less water out. The theory is we're gonna get into the fall months, hope like that we get some rain, we get into the spring months, get some rain. We'll continue taking less water out of Cheney by the things that we're doing. We'll start taking more water out of the Equispeds and we'll start to balance things out. It's gonna help, no matter how you look at it, it's gonna slowly decline. We're ready to bring this plant online. Our current plant's 85 years old, it's served us well. I'll mention real quick, we are working on a plan, what we're gonna do with that old plant. We're gonna make a recommendation most likely to keep that plant and have it as emergency backup, that we can bring it online. It makes sense. We certainly wouldn't want to get rid of that option. So we have a dedication ceremony on October 4th for this facility. The governor will be in town, a lot of people here. It's been just an amazing project, $600 million. Really proud of how this has come out and we're ready to start using it. One last slide. And thank you for bearing with me. As we've gone through this, it's really come to me, talking to our city manager, especially talking to our city council members and our citizens. Question keeps asking, what are we gonna do going forward? Tremendous question, because I believe still, if you went back to 2013, I think within weeks after the big rains, we mostly forgot we had been in a drought, right? We went through that summer and cranked up sprinkler systems and did everything else, because it's human nature. We have got to change how we do things. I think our plan is working really well. I've been extremely proud of how the community responded to collaboration with water restrictions and what it's done. But if the weather stays the same, it's not going to get, so we got to do something different. I mentioned that Cheney returned to normal pool in 3+ years. We've got to think long term. So give you a couple examples. We're going to start working with the building and development community. I think as most of you know, any new development that goes in this city, they're going to put in rescue yards, they're going to put in irrigation, and they're going to water twice a day, right? So it's something I think that that's a big deal. That's a huge amount of water. 20% of our water every year comes from outdoor irrigation use. Most of it is home. So if we start changing that dynamic, we're going to see if we can find a way to start. You know, it's quality of life, more marketable. People want a house with best facade. We got to find a way to get away from that. I know what it looks like. We got to get away from that. We talked about reuse options and additional water rights. There's not a lot of water rights just out there. We get a question a lot about why don't we get water from El Dorado? Couple reasons. First and foremost, there are some water rights available. It's not much. It wouldn't take very long for us to take that, but it won't be available when we need it. When we get to a point in this drought, if it continues, when we need that water, they can no longer offer it. You know, we've struggled with rain in the Cheney Basin, but the El Dorado Lake is down. It's still 2.5 feet. We see a long-term drought that's bad enough. It's going to impact El Dorado such that there's no longer water available. That's a tremendous cost to bring a pipeline from El Dorado. The return on investment is just not there, but we'll continue to look at that. Reuse is a big deal. I mentioned the reuse. We're going to continue looking at reuse, try to find a way. A lot of the communities in the southwestern part of the United States, just because of long-term water issues, that's their only choice, is what's coming out of the treatment. So we're always open to suggestions, thoughts, continuing to talk about this. I hear some great things from the community, people that call and chat about this. Here's also from people that think we have no idea what we're doing, it's understand why we're doing it. Anyway, this counts me what I'm done, sorry.
No, you're good. It was very important stuff.
Almost stupid question, but,
Darn, I can promise you, I'm gonna.
so. Where do you find water well signs?
We have a printable version online.
Okay,
If you're interested, if you go to favoritesaltwater.com. And you might have to remember where it's at in there, but we have a printable version. People have made homemade signs if you want.
Yeah,
Anything that says well.
and I thought I could tell them, here, and some of them, our house water is still on that.
Yeah, oh yeah, there are some folks that all of the water is not in the state. And needless to say, we encourage conservation. We have a rebate program, that's part of what you'll see here. Especially for outdoor watering, for irrigation, rain sensors for irrigation. We see a lot of irrigation systems running with raining, things that you can put on your hoses, your faucet for tanks. We still have rebates for indoor high efficiency devices. If you ever have any questions, you can find my contact information really easy online. I'm always happy to discuss. Got thoughts.
Have any considerations with the dam, the ditch, the control? That seems to be a lot of acreage, even hold water. When we have it, instead of letting it run all down here.
So there's a couple of parts to that from a regulatory standpoint. We've been fault there on how that works. The biggest challenge with that is if we were to do that, we've got to figure a way to get it out, right?
Well, you know, with the dam and the water comes up.
Well, but if we're talking about damming up water, so we've got a water resource, then we've got to find a way to pump it out, we've got to find a way to treat it, we've got to get pipelines to get it somewhere, right? That ends up being a lot of cost. We have to measure what our chances are. There's some water in the big ditch now downstream of where the big arc comes into. It doesn't amount to much, but I appreciate the thought. We've tried to scour every possible thing we can think of. It's challenging, it gets expensive really quick. When you have to find a way to contain water, you have to store it and then be able to do something with it. But I appreciate that thought.
I think we're the only district that is on the same day, so it's 51 Wednesday. All the other districts are divided, so ours is just Wednesday, the sign for the back say that as well. And I know probably a lot of people, I have a well, but I'm making sure my line is not the greatest. And I quit it pretty early on. And I have not watered since we officially called it drought, not once, and my lawn is still very green.
I don't water in 3 or 4 weeks, but we've had to do it.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things we talk about too is no watering between 10 AM and 8 PM. It's good practice all the time. You know, summer when you see people have their irrigation on, it's just bad news because water, it's not really good.
And I'll correct something Gary said accidentally, it's not water once a day, water once a week. I think it was.
Oh, I water once a week. Sorry, did I
Yeah.
say once a
You
day?
did, I want to make sure that's corrected,
Thank
it's also
you.
with the documents, I was like, I don't want that to get out, so.
I do. Thank you. I got to hurry on that.
No, you're good, I was gonna ask you questions afterward if that was the case, so. No, thank you, we have incredible, we have 3,000 staff, every single time I have a question, Gary has an answer, I've been very impressed. I'm very impressed with his leadership of Public Works as well, so thank you for being
Thank
here.
you.
And he answers, questions faster than I do, and somebody emails about drought, so. thanks for being here.
Well, let me know if anything else. I want you to.
Okay. We've got to do this at the start, so we can quickly do this, especially since we have a new member, but we usually go around and give introductions. Just say your name, what part of the district you live in. Wally?
Falling down, I live in Pawnee, 119th Street. Donovan Walden, 135th.
Gage Hunt, 47
How are you?
John Whitmer, 135th and Pawnee.
Alan Oliver, Maple, and Arabian.
Patty Palazzo, today's my name.
We have 2 more, Stephanie, and I think Alex is on too.
Weather is 80 degrees in
Oh,
Sheridan.
Stephanie, you're muted.
Please stop the sun. Tonight, you can expect clear skies with a low of 56 degrees.
I'm Alex Martinez. I'm at Pawnee and Seneca.
Switch your leader.
Stephanie, you're.
Stephanie, yep, Stephanie Yeager, at Meridian and 47th.
Stephanie, tell us more about you since you're the new member as well.
Oh, well, hi, everybody. I'm the new member. I don't know. What do you want to know?
No, I forgot
I-
to be honest. Stephanie.
I've lived in South Wichita, most of my life. I'm a South High grad. I love it, and I'm, very committed to our part of town. So that's it.
Stephanie works for IF local, fire unit. She also is a
Yeah.
state representative, previously, representing Southwest Wichita as well. So thank you for, being with us, Stephanie.
Thank you.
And then, our district's the largest, geographically the largest, and, it's a very diverse district, especially economically diverse. So thank you all for being here and thanks for engaging. To move on, we have the public agenda. We do have one scheduled item and we have no alternate items. If you are here from the public and you're not scheduled to speak, but you want to speak, I'll give you the opportunity before I turn it over to Nancy. You have 5 minutes. If you want to. Okay, I'll turn over to Nancy Bradley. Nancy is my appointee to the Animal Control Advisory Board. I asked her to give like a 5-minute update about animal control, maybe some of the big issues facing animal control and some things we can expect moving forward. So Nancy, also, if you want to introduce yourself, I think you've been in that role for like 3 months, 4 months.
Yes, I was appointed in April, my first meeting was in May. My name is Nancy Bradley. I live in Delano, Dalton. The biggest thing is on this sports team, the city council, the changes to the board. 2 changes are in effect now. The rest of the change of the first one is mandatory microchipping for any animal over the age of 5 months and less of that determines that it is helping the animal or causing harm. I want to bring up, there's 2 microchips that's coming up. There's a 3 vaccine microchip. Accelerated for C for number 1 at the Fort Worth Center. Is being put on by the city, Fox, Petro, and and then Wednesday, September 25th, which is a Wednesday, from 2 to 6. This is for Wichita residents. It's a $5 chip, with $5 ratings, and it's at Greenleaf in South Lake Valley. At the Pals at the West Valley. Now it's Baby or campus. And it's put on by Baby Business Health, Animal Rescue, and the city of Wichita. The second thing is increased fines for attacks and bites. The first offense is going up to $250 to $500. The second offense from $500 to $1,000. The third offense from $1,000 to $500. Most of the recommendations were presented to the council from a subcommittee of the Animal Advisory. The increase in fines was added by the city / the department. And the reasons is because there are so many. District 4 as of between January and the end of June, the last report I got was in January. District 4 has the highest number of dog attacks at 60. We're tied with 11 for dogs being potentially dangerous. And we have the highest number of dogs being dangerous at 29. The total in the city for dog bites was 317, dog attacks 249, potentially dangerous 52, and deemed dangerous 107. On the raise on bites and attacks, it was explained to me that the fines are education based. It was like, if you get caught speeding, they do get a ticket. Well, that's a deterrent because folks are going to slow down. The insurance rate's going to go up, et cetera, et cetera. And they kind of look at it the same way with animal lives or the fires or board. And there's evidence that the dog will be used dangerous, and there's three categories, 1, 2, 3, and 3, they are used. It is a misdemeanor. A citation is given to you to go to court and you get. The KDA, everybody's looking at the right, or not. And technically, a lot of it is used for the Department of Agriculture. You should not only of that, it's taken an animal health shelter that has kennel cough, any respiratory disease. And a lot of these, I mean, there are foster people in Kansas. That's what they do. They like to nurse animals back to health. A lot of them are euthanized because only of that taken out, so that part is a lot of this stuff is simply free. So, anyway, you can make the rate for that. And the KDA is currently proposing some changes, which is to make it even worse. Today was the last day for public comments. And I don't have, if you want the link, I can give it to you. But it's some of the things that they're doing, like there's different rescues and some are certain types of dogs. Well, the proposal is to no longer send an animal to a rescue in any state unless it's licensed. Oklahoma is not licensed to rescues for help. So we can no longer use sending them down there. And they got some of the big rescues. You can't cross state line. There is a rescue organization that has a building or a shelter in the city. They will not be able to trace it. And the list goes on. So anyway, yeah. And the only other thing is that the animal shelter is short on newspapers in town. So if you're coming, they will take it. And
That was a perfect update. Appreciate all the information. Thank you for serving as well. Any questions for Nancy?
What was the thought process behind tagging? I'm not a. It should be government. Well, okay, it's because, only half of the animals that go to the shelter have their chips. If they're chipped, you can get them back to your home. And in July, we can, I think there's like half of the ones that were chipped, the people didn't have it. And it's really important. And another thing is especially cats, because you say, oh, I got bit by this cat. Well, a yellow cat was from the yellow cat. If they're chipped, you need to look at their category. These are fine or fancy if you don't. I can't even say this. I just have to look that up.
People, I know a lot of the justification was it would help us not have to do anything to the way.
Yep.
Euthanize animals, because the percentage of animals that are also just not claiming for the shelter, I think it's like 94% of cats.
Yeah, I have that from.
About 31, you can.
We don't need, our intake is, they're taking in about 27. And the only ones that they're really euthanizing are the KDA medical, other medical, the deemed dangerous, which are portally, and some behavioral, and then, they're working on mercy, where I don't know why, but it was, but the majority is if you read Facebook, oh my God, they keep going with videos. Don't think of the several things. Every, yeah, and sometimes but anyway, because and resource is another, problem. When a dog is, or has listed as a resource, there's not a rescue, unfortunately. The Humane Society just does not take any dogs away at the time. And so, a lot of times, they keep them between 12 and 14 days before they have to make a decision, and if no one wants that animal, you gotta make room for a possible animal that someone will take. And you can't just, plus with the kennel cough, which is an airborne, you don't want to keep them any longer. That's it.
Alan, I know you had a question.
Yeah.
What can we do about feral cats? My neighbor next door, he has feeding 6 of them, okay? And then they get into my trash, I go out on my back patio in the morning and they're in my furniture, they be on my car. What can we do with feral cats?
I know you can, so that they can put you in traffic, but I don't.
I know what I wanna do.
Yeah. I know.
The officer I talked to, okay, the lieutenant, that was written down, said that the traps that for 40 bucks, you get a trap from the Humane Society, like a rental. And he said, don't put the food inside as the ditch, spread it on the ground, make the cat work for it, not that it's a game and the trap and we're gonna food in the ditch. And then you get a trap and you call. So you might never get through to animal control, but try to call and they'll pick them up and then you can put it up.
Gotta just take it out, have to drop it off.
That's what he told me, anyway. Well, he told farm and let it go in a farm. They don't want.
So what?
No, Lieutenant Knights, I think you do the bullet shot that's got a sale on AR-15.
Okay, so animal control, we know it's a topic, what I find interesting is we actually have some of the, most dangerous dogs in the entire city, and I probably get some of the least amount of calls out of all the other, city council members about, animals. Most of the calls come from Michael Elias's district, Brandon Johnson's district.
They're the other two.
I get probably the least amount of calls of most of the council people about dogs, but we have some of the highest violations in the city. What we added in the city's budget this past year was a kind of a reorganization towards administrative functions to hire somebody that can help administer. Well, we're in the process of also doing this too. Hire someone that can handle the administrative functions of animal control that could actually answer the phone calls.
Yeah.
Because I've called animal control multiple times. I haven't
Well,
yes, we both called and they won't answer my phone calls.
and you hit the button and you get the recording.
Yes. So hopefully with that new position, or calls will come in, people can get at least responsive help. Once I can usually get a hold of someone, I can handle whatever situation it is, but
And
that's
they're short.
they are.
Yeah,
So-
and who wants to work for qualified?
So
Almost every day.
in the budget process, that was something that the council prioritized was how do we handle animal control moving forward? There was an RFP that went out to privatize the shelter operations that didn't come back with anything. And so we're not intending to move in that direction. I believe it's a function of government to enforce our laws. And so I want to keep it in-house to the government. I don't believe we should send it out to private industry. So this is ongoing conversations. There'll be a lot more conversations in the next year, so this is very applicable. So if you have any concerns, questions, Nancy is incredibly responsive, and so you can reach out to her, reach out to Brooke and myself if there are any more questions.
And I can forward it.
Yeah.
And our meetings are open to the public, they're the third Wednesday of the month. November. We go through in September and November.
And it's probably one of our most contentious boards out of everything. So it's far more contentious than this board most of the time. So probably know that.
We have four, at least 3 people.
Well, thank you for serving. Thanks for your update. Is there anybody else present today that isn't on the agenda that wants to speak about agenda not on the, or about an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to zoning case 2024-00040.
Brad Everly, senior planner with APP. We're gonna discuss, case number VON 4-00040 today. For this case, the applicant is requesting a zone change from SF5 single family residential to LC limited commercial district. On a 0.70 acre property. This subject site is currently located on the north side of West Arthur Road and 800 feet west of South Cemetery Street. That address is 1310 West Arthur Road. Currently, the site is developed with a single family dwelling that is vacant. And the applicant is looking to use the property for its highest and best use, similar to use permitted on adjacent LC zone properties. SF5 does allow for single family housing, no limited number of civic and public uses, while LC allows for single family, two family, multi-family, in addition to limited number of civic and public uses. The table in the agenda report does compare the development standards of each zoning district there. So some of those would change pretty drastically. The character of the neighborhood is generally commercial and industrial in nature. Property to the north and east is on LC and OW office warehouse, and is developed with warehouse office combination. Properties to the south are zoned plan unit development number 46 and are developed with warehouses, distribution center, and distribution center. Property to the west is on LC. It's owned by the applicant, and it's developed with a small commercial shop, and then also with like a single family dwelling and manufactured house are also on our lot. But according to the applicant, all three buildings are vacant, and the applicant is working to have them demolished. A little bit of case history: this site is unplatted. If the applicant develops the site as a commercial use, platting will be required prior to any building permit, and there are no other cases associated with the property. So the site has access to West Parker Road, which is a 4-lane arterial street with a middle turn lane, sidewalks on both sides. Site has access to all municipal services, and Wichita Transit does serve the site north of the intersection of West Parker Road and South Seneca, approximately 1,000 feet away from the subject site. The requested zone change is in conformance with the community investment plan. The 2035 future growth concept map describes the area of residential mix. It's described as areas of land that likely will be developed and redeveloped by 2035. For uses predominantly of a mixed nature due to the proximity of higher intensity businesses. Residential housing types within this area likely will be higher density due to the proximity of residential uses. Employment uses likely will have limited negative impacts associated with noise, hazardous emissions, visual light. So rezoning this subject site to LC is an appropriate request considering proximity to other commercially zoned properties. And then the locational guidelines. Guideline 1A under land use compatibility suggests that higher intensity development should be discouraged from locating areas of existing lower intensity development, particularly with established low density residential areas. And this applicant's request fulfills that location guideline because there really is no low density residential in the general vicinity. So the recommendation, actually, before we do that, I'll go to the side pictures real quick, if you don't mind scrolling down. So that's a picture right there on the top left of the site. You can see there's the same family dwelling at one point, just to the west and northwest, or I'm sorry, east and northeast. There's the 7-Up Snapple warehouse there, and then to the left is the storefront with the mobile home and the single family dwelling. And then to the right is just looking down West MacArthur to the east. And then scroll down a little bit further, we got a couple more. These are these big industrial warehouses to the south. And one last picture down bottom is looking west down West MacArthur. So based on everything that we've got currently, staff is recommending that the zone change be approved. I don't know if the applicant is. That doesn't look like it, so I'll do my best to answer any questions that you might have. May not be able to answer everything.
Questions for staff or the applicant if they're online? I know we had two people. I don't know if it's one of them. No, I think it's not. So any questions for staff from the board, from the public? Seeing none, is there
Did
anybody?
I,
One second, John. Is there anybody from the public that wants to speak on this case?
yeah, I just had a question. Like, was it mentioned what the light industrial, like, what kind of business they're looking to put in that spot?
Yeah, so it's not like industrial, it's like, limited commercial, and they have not indicated what they would like to put in that spot.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question, Susan. Thank you for being here as well. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, John?
I make a motion to approve.
John's motion to approve, and let's go with Jonathan's today for a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same sign. Passes unanimously.
That was 7-0.
One,
Eight.
two,
There's two people on
yeah.
that.
Okay, thanks for being here. We'll move on to our last agenda item, and that's the Wichita Bicycle Master Plan. I imagine, here, oh, hello. Presentation from staff, and then, the recommended action is provide feedback and comments. You won't be voting on anything today, just provide feedback and comments from the presentation and ask questions.
So my name is James Wagner. I'm the Special Projects Engineer for Engineering. And I didn't know much about this plan until this afternoon when I was volunteering for coming to give this presentation. So you might have to bear with me on maybe questions, but I'll do my best. Gary is here, you might know something, and we also have Alan Taylor, who's been instrumental in getting this done. So this is about the Wichita Bicycle Plan. It's updated from the 2013 version, so it's getting a little outdated, and we're trying to incorporate what we've done so far and update what we're hoping to do in the near future. I think you're gonna have to do the slides for me, right? Okay, next slide, please. So the way this process was done is it had an 8-step process. I'm not gonna go through every step, but we are nearing the end, that final 3 steps, mostly in that 7 to 8 area, if I'm not mistaken, where prioritization and criteria and weighting, and then prioritization of projects is starting to happen. And the way some of this was cited was they went through 4 different criteria where systematic safety was one of the highest ones, where it's weighted at 35%. Equity was weighted at 17%, and trip potential was weighted at 25%, and then public input was given 21% based on how they did some of their mapping here. So that will come into play as we look at some of the other maps, the criteria and how it's created. So next slide, please. So we have so basically, when they're going through this, they're looking at ways to deliver a priority list to the city so that we can develop the best opportunities for bicycling with the money that we get for this community. So selecting, based on that, we look at what money we have in the CIP and program different projects based on the priority lists that have come out of this study. And we're separating some of the projects into high priority, and then like a phase 1 and then a phase 2, and then some other projects that we'll take back into a lesser priority. We're also looking at how our CIP develops projects. On all of our projects, we try to develop on roadways where we try to build sidewalks minimum on both sides of the roadway, but we try to get at least a 10-foot walk or separated bike paths included with our CIP projects. And then also we are using some of our OP3 dollars, which is the maintenance dollars that we have, to maybe change the way some of the streets are configured and add on-street bike lanes and such to help increase our bikeability across this community as well. And then there is some opportunities where we've had some private development that have added some of the same stuff. Couple projects couple areas specifically kind of northwest northwest up by Hoover and the kind of by K96 or some of it, so we're gonna be extending that on our CIP project as well. So next slide, yeah, so the first job of this committee was to start getting some priorities. As you can see on the right, there's a chart there that has priorities 1 and 2, which of course the top priorities are your 1s, and then the next ones down are your 2s. And so we're looking at trying to be really proactive with the way these are developed. There's 34 miles of additional bikeways in that priority list. If you include the CIP, you're adding another 10 miles or so up to about 44 miles of new bikeways. So some of the places we do, like I said, overlap with some of our CIP projects. Some of the downtown areas around Douglas here, we've got some overlap with bike paths and some of our CIP projects, and again, I said Hoover as well. And then 21st, Jeanette to Broadway are also one of the ones that we've got where we're starting to overlap with the 2 different types of methods here. So in total, there is close to 81 miles of new bikeways proposed. I don't know much more about how we get to that number, sorry. What we have here is kind of what we call these are kind of maps that kind of show priorities based on some of the feedback that we've gotten, some of the decision tools that were made. This first one is for the community input, and with the peach color. Is this not pointer? I'm not sure. The ones that the big thick peach colors are what the public noted as some of the higher priorities for them. So that was again weighted at 25% for the community. But sorry, 21%. Sorry. And then that's probably the biggest takeoff of that slide. Next slide, please. Again, this is our systematic here. Sorry, I dropped all my slides on the ground before I came here, so it all got unsorted. I apologize. This is the systematic, which systematic safety, which was the highest priority at 35%. So it's showing kind of, if you kind of look at the area kind of in the centralized portion of town where you start seeing the heaviest color, darker bluish, purplish shades, those tend to be where your safety comes into more play and where they've identified the highest safety concerns for the community. And next slide, please. The next slide, again, this is the trip potential where you're starting to look at destination trips for the paths that we're putting in. So what can these trips take you to? And again, this starts to spread out a little bit more, but as you get a darker color of purple, that's where you're starting to see the higher priorities start to develop. And then also you can see where we have the red and yellow lines. Those are projects that have projects in design for additional paths. I meant to mention that last slide. Next slide, please. And then again, this is our last criteria, which was the equity. It's basically making sure that you're developing a plan that it covers every type of personal income areas that you have in this town. So we're trying to make sure that no one's left out and that everybody gets a fair shake and that you spread the money around as best you can. So this is the heat map that shows how you can best incorporate all forms of that as well. So the next slide is kind of what you produce out of all of that, which is basically a combination of all 3 maps. And as you can see, the darker colors you get, that starts to be where our goals are supposed to be aimed towards as far as putting our potential paths. So as you can see, it's really concentric around the main midsection of town, of course, and that starts with the safety and then continues on through the other criteria for us. So. As you can see, a lot of our bike paths that we have under design right now fall within that corridor. And so I think we're trying to do our best to see and do what this plan does already, but we've got more work to do. I don't have any additional slides to go over. Oh, yeah, sorry. This is our. Sorry. Yeah, so this is the bike map as it is today. And so it shows what we have in design and what's existing. So if you look at what we have and what we need to develop, that's kind of what this plan is going to go over, is how we can fill in those gaps. I'll try to scan for any questions. I'm sorry, that was very rough. 20 minutes today and try to learn everything I could about what's going on, but
You did great. Any questions for James? If there's no questions, he's also here to take thoughts, and Brooks recording everything to send to Public Works. People designing the bicycle plan. So first, any questions? With the understanding he may not be able to answer. But
I'll do my best.
okay. Any questions? Not, we can go in comments. I saw Wally, and then we'll just go this way. Wally?
Is this just for bicycles or is it gonna allow golf carts? Because there's a lot more golf carts going around the neighborhood with now. And they're selling them on Kellogg, and Lowe's is now selling golf carts.
City code is not on golf carts on the streets,
Yeah, it's
as it sits right now.
I believe, yeah, motorized vehicles should. There's usually bollards in place that stop with motorized vehicles from.
Okay.
Like seeing what happens.
That, those electric bikes as well, if you motorized vehicles.
The gray area.
But something I'd like to see is teaching people, because I'm an Uber driver and I drive all around this town, okay, and just educate, okay? I get the First Street, the I-35, and it's green over there. Can I get over there or can I not?
You mean the green paint on the road? So the green paint is basically meant to show an area of high conflict. And it's basically there to notify the motorized public that you are entering into a space where there's a major conflicting movement with the bike path. So it's meant to show so that motorized vehicles would show an additional amount of caution. And then also it also allows the bicyclists to understand, if they don't already, that they're entering a conflict point as well.
Right. And so they're all over, especially in the downtown area, and I'm thinking, yeah, I'd go with it.
Yeah. Yes, they're meant to be crossing areas, and that's what they're meant to indicate, is that it's high traffic for both. Or, I mean, it's a safety concern for both the vehicle and the pedestrian that's using that area. It's meant to indicate that you should use a little bit more caution in your crossing. It's not meant for you to park in, it's meant for you to travel through.
There's been so many, what, people hit by a car, or hit by a car on a bicycle, how many fatalities have we had this year? You know, it's been fucking crazy.
And I think that's kind of why the safety portion was weighted the way it was.
I wouldn't ride a bike in this town and get down it, you know, with cell phones and everything going on these days.
And after we give comments
I can't
to,
speak.
James, I'll have Alan just give a brief update. Alan, the bike walk, which job, great job, especially the education.
Alan's been instrumental in actually helping as part of the community to give input on this plan, so it was a great resource for this as well.
Other comments from the board, John?
We have cost of this built in, or is there any new cost that's going to be act for it, you money to act for it? So we're continually adding money into the CIP for projects. And part of that is determining a portion of CIP that's dedicated towards paths is allotted and given the priority. what's necessary. Every year, a budget's set, and that budget does include bikeways. And I can't tell you exactly, some years it's more than others. It was for a long time on a every other year basis where bikeways got a little bit more money, but I think that's changing into more of a yearly. Gary, you might be able to speak.
Well,
about that.
what I might say is, so this, the last bicycle master plan was in 2013. Really, this is to set the framework and be a guideline for our recommendations to the city council for the next few years. So based on community input, based on our recommendations, and ultimately, what the city council wants to do in the future CIP will determine what we can find there, based on priority projects that come out of this.
And I, just looking at what I've seen, it's got $3 million shortfall in 26, $10 million budget shortfall in 27, right? $12 million budget shortfall in 28. Here's an area we can stop.
Certainly understand our objective, based on where we're already going, and I appreciate that, I do. And that's up to when our working with the city council, what they'd like to do with that.
So I mean, this is for cost. This is for fun. And the short term, it'll be when budgets, when times are tight, you cut your cable. When times are tight, maybe you trim back on your unnecessary. This is an unnecessary.
Understood. I might give you a quick example of what comes to us, and I do appreciate that. I know we should.
Before we start raising problems.
Right, but I'll give you a really good example of what comes to us a lot. That people saying that they're struggling to afford to drive, they want the ability to safely use a bike to work. There's a lot, right? I mean, that's where a lot of this comes from, but people want, it's not just for leisure, but it's for their everyday use. So we're trying to balance that. I think within all of that.
When each of these projects comes before the council before they're finally approved and planned. So if there's something that's in a disagreement, each one comes before the council.
I will say that each year, the Bike and Ped Board does provide their yearly recommendations for which projects to address with the project as a day.
I might go back a little bit on the education part real quick, if you don't mind. Very good question. We hear that a lot. I have to remind myself, downtown stuff, especially some of the corners where you can actually cross over a bike lane, make a right turn, some of them parking. We're trying to clean a lot of that up. The green area with it's both are going to use it. But not everybody knows that, right?
But you have to be there.
So as part of our efforts with this bicycle master plan, I think should be evident all of us, is the educational component. We work closely with Winstar Metropolitan Planning Organization on a lot of efforts for public education. I think is a good place to start. There's a lot of things that we can do going forward on our website, social media, whatever it might be. One more quick thing on that, we've had a lot of requests from buffer bike lanes. So if you've been in some communities, you get a physical separation, right, at the edge of the bike lane, or is it just generally pavement markings? There's a desire for buffer bike lanes to add to safety component, and it creates a more obvious barrier, right? They haven't figured that out entirely. That's what's being
That like those poles in the ground.
yeah, so the delineator, plastic delineator. If you get a street that's got a lot of driveways, it doesn't make a lot of sense. You gotta open up every driveway. That depends on where it's at. Some communities, depending on how the streets were built out, they basically got a concrete curve there. There's things we have to balance: street maintenance, snow and ice removal, but we're trying to move that direction. And I know it's something you talked to Alan and the board about, but I think within this plan, and our city of the year recently talked about trying to start looking at more options for some type of barrier. Visual barrier helps a lot, right? The plastic delineator is not gonna stop a car, but to your point, it's a lot more clear on where I should be and shouldn't be. And I think it gives those bicyclists a little bit more feeling of comfort when they're in that way. There's a lot of parts within this that have been our goal since 2013. try to answer a lot of those questions and see where we want to go going forward.
You guys have any other questions before Alan gets up here? Or Alan, you want to?
Yeah, Wally?
The 10 foot sidewalk that you're putting in there, what is the purpose of that? Is that for golf carts, or scooters, or what's it supposed to be used in that? Well,
We typically refer to those as multi-use paths. And it's meant for bicycling, walking, no motorized vehicles, but like you said, those kind of scooters start to become kind of a gray area. I believe they're supposed to be on the streets, but that doesn't mean that they're not used.
If you kind of set aside the part that we're still trying to regulate, which I'll explain, it's for bicyclists and pedestrians, that's the whole idea, wide enough that can accommodate bicyclists and pedestrians, so we try to balance, and that's what happens during this full planning. There are a lot of bicyclists in this community that want to go out on Saturday morning and they want to ride 50 miles, right?
Yeah.
They don't want to be on a multi-use path, they want to be on the street, they want to go out Westdale, they want to go out 23rd Street all the way to Cheney, so they want an on-street bike lane. Multi-use paths have become really popular in neighborhoods and with connections from residential to commercial, if people can push a stroller, you can accommodate more people walking, you can take a family with their bikes. I wouldn't, when my kids were younger, I wouldn't want to take my family out of a lot of it, stuff, they like it or not, it's just what it is, we've got a lot of traffic. So we've tried to balance that out of the last bicycle master plan, where that whole idea came from, of where do these multi-use paths. So we have got to a point on nearly all of our arterial streets, when we rebuild them, that one side of the multi-use path is really popular. And they seem to do well, kids go to school, whatever it might be.
but out around 135th Street, you got Auburn Hill Golf Course. And there's all kinds of neighbors every day go down that path for their golf cart to play golf. So maybe if they aren't supposed to be there, and again, it's 135th Street North Maple, it's only 2 lanes. So it is very safe to have them on those 2 lanes.
So the reality, and obviously I can understand your conversation with golf carts, and there's been a discussions at times with the South Police Department and City Council, whether it was to change, there's a vote right now that wants to change it. It kind of varies, like you said, I just came from Jacksonville, Florida, my brother lives in a community that everybody uses a golf cart everywhere, it's designed that way, it's just who they are. Right now, ordinance says you are not supposed to be doing enforcement's a challenge, right? But that's not what these are designed with that. And it's not, we're not denying our streets at one maybe at some point, some of the law changes, so we may reconsider how we do it.
I know there may have been other comments. I would also want to introduce Kelly. Kelly's appointment to the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Board. So I'll be speak probably in a future meeting, get an update from the board too. But he's also a resource for the bicycle board. So if you have comments, please reach out to Kelly, Brooke and I as well. So he knows when he's having conversations, the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Board too. Any other comments? Okay. James, thank you. Gary, thank you.
Sorry for the rough introduction there. I didn't have a lot of time to go over this, so.
Alan, you were saying anything briefly? I'll also open up the public, if the public has questions, comments.
Thank you.
So, James did a great job on very short notice. Thank you. As James said, really the purpose, the main focus of the plan is safety, food safety. There are increasing numbers of people being killed and seriously injured for riding bikes and walking, as you said. The idea is to try to design a network that anybody is comfortable riding on. Now, we're not going to be able to get there, you know. There are budget constraints, and from if safety were the only consideration, we put a 10-foot path on every street in the city and block it off. We're not going to be able to do that, but within the budget constraints, we're gonna try to make it as safe as possible. By the way, when you make it safe for people biking and walking, that also makes it safer for people driving cars. Experience across the country has shown when we put in facilities to make it safer for people biking and walking, that the traffic, the number of traffic goes down, makes it safer for people driving as well. But as Gary pointed out, the other main point of it is that there are a lot of people who either want to or actually need to go to provide for walk to other jobs and to resources. There are neighborhoods in the city where 20 and 30% of the households do not even have it. And they have to, they can't use transit effectively here. It's either it's very long between the buses or the buses stop running at night and those sort of things. So the only really viable alternative is bike. And with sidewalk with and one of the things we do is take the nice bikes, pick them up and give them away. We give them away to a lot of people. A lot of adults do use them to get to their job. We get stories all the time. We're riding to 37th and hydraulic to the Coleman plant, to the old so forth, second and third shifts. So if buses are not available, if they can't afford a car, or can't get a driver's license for whatever reason, they need to be able to be provided. So the purpose is to make it a viable alternative for transportation. With regard to the funding, and to your question, John, the budget shortfall is on the annual operating budget. Most of the construction comes out of the CIP, the 10-year construction budget coming on, which is not, unfortunately. No, it can't.
Yeah, you and I both know.
No. Let me explain. Most of the CIP, very big portion of the CIP is funded with the local sales tax, which can be used only for the funding of roads at the time of the approval. And so that is a lot of the money that's used for these projects that can't be used for other purposes. So it can't be transferred over to the operating budget instead of satisfy the shortfall. It is part of the CIP, and as Councilmember pointed out, all of the individual projects are approved by the council as they come forward to be approved. So, any questions? Appreciate your consideration. Thanks.
Anybody else from the public? Anybody online? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to next. That's board agenda. I don't really have much unless you have questions for me. We have a District 4 advisory or breakfast on the 12th, location to be determined. I think we're looking at South High, is that right? That's gonna be with Councilman Hill Heisel, so we're just collabing for that. October and November DAT will be on different dates than just the normal time. October will be on a Wednesday, because I think I was gonna be out of town Monday. So, sorry, I'm talking about Wednesday. And then November, we're doing another breakfast, and that one will be with Vice Mayor Ballard at the Winston Sonic Home. So I'm trying to collab at the ends of each district where I collide with another member, so we don't have to do all ourselves all the time. Any questions for me? Yes, where you gonna move up this public parking thing? Yeah, I knew there was a parking. So when it came up, previously, just history, the previous council voted for the parking agreement. When it came up to, decide, how we were going to implement the agreement, I was the sole dissenting vote, there's a 6-1 vote, on the agreement. I do agree that there's no such thing as free parking. Downtown parking is either being paid by user fees or it's being paid by your property tax dollars. That is how it's being paid for right now. I think we should address that. I do believe it should be more user fees and people using the downtown system than, an elderly woman who lives out in South Wichita that never goes downtown. I don't think the property tax dollars should be used to pay for downtown parking all the time. The difference I have with my colleagues is that I think there's a difference between roads and paying for the roads, which are already maintained in the city operating budget that are paid by property tax dollars, and also our garages and lots that are not paid by property, or should not be paid by property tax dollars. So that's one disagreement. The biggest disagreement I have is that I don't believe you should export, and I said this earlier, with animal control, I don't believe you should export the enforcement of our laws to a third party. There is a role and function of government, and that's to enforce laws. The private industry has a profit incentive to be able to ticket people. Government shouldn't have a profit incentive to do that. We should just be able to enforce the law. So I do agree with the principle that we need to address parking. I don't agree with how it's being done currently. And so what we've done since then, obviously there was disagreements in the public about what we're doing. I think it was ruled out poorly. So I made the motion that we suspend the parking agreement until we have further conversations. We're hearing the parking conversation tomorrow during council. I know there's no vote to be taken. I believe that staff will come back in 30 to 60 days with a new proposal that takes into consideration public input. For that end, I think public input has said that we should address Delano, Old Town, and downtown differently. They also agree with Old Town parking is very different in Delano, especially. We represent Delano District 4 for this half of it. The multi-modal hub is going to change how parking is done in Delano. So why would we implement a plan now that's going to change and build a significant 400, parking garage, 400 stall parking garage? So that's going to be different. Delano, I also heard from businesses there that they're fine with the 2 hour, 2 hour free parking and then paper parking because they want they want people in front of their spot and they want a turnaround, and paid parking does create a turnaround. So I think Delano's different. Downtown, we have to address the paid parking side, whether that's on street, whether maybe on street parking is free, so it's already paid by property tax dollars, maybe our lots are paid for. So there's some conversation there. And then Old Town, especially the business owners, seem happy with the agreement they have currently. Right now, businesses in Old Town pay to a parking fund, and that parking fund maintains the lots in Old Town. However, that's running a deficit as well. So regardless, we're gonna have to increase the cost of business owners in Delano because it's not meeting our demand. So that lack of full funding is now being paid by your property tax dollars. So that's kind of maybe some will, there's conversations floated, well, would a CID work for maybe the area we're looking at parking? That I don't think it's gonna be feasible, because my understanding is the CID has to have 100% of the business owners agree to that. That's not gonna happen in these areas. So I don't think that's a viable path. So I'm interested in seeing what staff does present. Unfortunately, I still think that there's a will of the majority of the council to use car park or use a third party. So unless that changes, I still plan to vote no. Because I don't believe we should be doing that. So it's kind of a parking update. Conversations, if you have any, or I'm happy to take feedback now, so you don't have to come tomorrow. Or you can come tomorrow if you wanted all the council to hear it as well. That's up to you. But there'll be future conversations. And when we actually vote on it, we're expecting 30 to 60 days. That would be where it might make more sense once it's a proposal done before council. I think a lot of you have reached out to me about your concerns and questions. So, anything now, I'm happy to get feedback too.
You know why? That's the process. But the exception is your staff, fantastic. A lot of your staff is very young, at least consent agendas are outrageous, slipping stuff in. I think you have an issue in that regard.
And this one was on consent agenda.
Initially it was.
Yes, yeah, initially,
I think.
yes, that was a nuance. Yes, I agree.
I think that's where your problem.
For context, it's kind of a nuance thing. We have second read agenda items, we have first read agenda items. The first read is in the public, provides input. That's the official recorded vote. Second read, and I had legal really verify this, is really understanding that the first vote happened. What's unique about the original parking agreement is that the previous council made the first vote ordinance read. It was on the second read ordinance listed as a conditional, I think it was a conditional change, it was something else, it didn't say parking on it. And so, there was misunderstanding, I think, whether it was a parking agreement that was being voted on or not. Regardless, that wouldn't have changed the discussion because the first vote is the official vote, so it's correct. So we had a second vote in June to determine whether or not how we were moving forward with it, and that was where I was sort of seeing. Any other comments? Any other comments about anything else but parking? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Thank you on your cuts.
Oh, no, we don't.
Don't, they will get $300 tax. Like,
800,000 of the 3 million were unanimous. There is dispute about the rest of the 2 million, but 800,000 unanimous. We got $3,050,000 worth of cuts to the operating budget. I'm hoping that mitigates our challenges we face in 2026. 2026, we're already facing a $3 million deficit. So if we make those cuts now, hopefully 2026 is fixed because there's systemic changes. And actually we can see a cost savings because it's not compounding costs over the course of the year. And there was a systemic change without cutting service levels. So no service level were cut. There were more innovative ways on how do we do government more efficiently and effectively. And I think we can still look at more of that in the future, but I am happy with $3 million effects. Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn? We will already second. Okay, I don't think we need to vote, so we are adjourned. Thank you.